With time moving at the speed of life and death, we seek joy in passing seconds. We believe in the rising stock of human equity. We employ the laws of abundance and stoke the fire of continuous reciprocity. We believe in the art of creating our stories and our relationships. We believe in the richness of reliability and trust, in the elegance of the helping hand. We believe in rising together, in upholding the traditions of the village, in the innate dignity of communal success, where neighborhoods leave no neighbor without. We believe in the celebration of harmony, understanding there are no throwaway people, that each of us is endowed with gifts and needs for services to exchange with purpose and kindness. Your self-worth will always come before your net worth. Currency for Humankind. You are listening to Karla Ballard, host of Currency for Humankind, where we get to sit down and talk about this lovely subject of community capital. Welcome. Hi, this is Karla Ballard, bringing you another episode of Currency for Humankind. Today, I have a really special guest, Payu Harris, who is the founder of MazaCoin. And this is a type of cryptocurrency. And if you don't know much about that, we'll be diving into it in the conversation. But you can't get any more currency for humankind than an effort to really address one of the major atrocities that happened on this land we call America, once known as Turtle Island. But this is a coin that was specifically created by Payu to focus on the indigenous sovereign nations that really have faced some extraordinary, real historical atrocities with respect to poverty and all sorts of things that have happened to our indigenous relatives. And so I'm just excited to have Payu on this interview, giving us some information on his journey, his personal journey, and why he got inspired to even create a coin like this. And this is not anything new. This has been around since 2013. So I want to introduce to you Payu Harris. Thank you so much for joining. How are you today?
Hi, good morning. Hey, how are you, Washington? I'm doing great, doing awesome.
Awesome. Great. Well, we're going to dive straight in. Oh, thank you, Payu. I'm doing great. You know, it's one of those things where for me to have this opportunity for you and I to have a conversation is really is critical now more than ever. So it's exciting to have this moment. So I want to dive straight in. You want to ask this question. Tell me a little bit about Payu. Tell me about your journey. Where did you grow up? What was that like?
Okay, well, my journey really started, I spent a lot of time on the Northern Cheyenne Indian reservation in Liveying, Montana. And a lot of my whole concept of life really emanated from my grandfather. It was a very special relationship where I learned stories. I learned a lot about our history, and history that wasn't taught in school. So I grew up with that for a time as a young child, and then my mom and I relocated to Colorado for a while. And after she got her master's degree, we moved back to the reservation, and I rebonded with my grandfather. And all of those stories that he had taught me and told me growing up all seemed to kind of just reactivate. And I realized that what those stories did, exactly like they're meant to do, is they teach us little things going forward in life. So that became kind of a central foundation, if you will, on who I would grow to be in the future. Really, my grandfather was my hero growing up. Everyone had baseball heroes, wanted to be a police officer, or fireman, or a soldier, or whatever. I just wanted to be like my grandfather. And it was sometimes little things that made such an impact. Like he would pick up some soil from the ground and say, our people have been here on this very land for thousands of years. If it wasn't for the dirt I hold in my hand, we wouldn't be. And that really starts to bind you to what it means to have, a homeland. And that really kind of made it so that it was a whole new type of feeling. I mean, I knew the history and I knew the stories that I learned in school, but that really didn't resonate quite like his teachings did. Everyone would go to, I'm sure a few of your listeners have gone through Montana and stopped off at the Custer National Battlefield. And they've taken the journey and listened to the stories and listened to what the park ranger says, and that's all very nice. But my grandfather walked me out to areas and would tell me, your uncle held this position with these people against the soldiers. Your uncle was shot down here. Your aunt ran that way with, our family. It became not only human, but it became a family affair. You understand sites like this, what they actually mean. And it wasn't just and the Indians fell here. No, it was family. It was your aunt. It was your cousin, your uncle. And that really put an exclamation point on things.
That was very powerful. When you think about like the actual, instead of reading a book out of, history or some park ranger, like you said, describing, this is family. These are relatives. These are stories that are passed down that you physically had a chance to interact with. And so can we talk a little bit about the tribe then? I think that's very powerful. I have 7th generation Shawnee and Cherokee, coming from the mountains of Virginia. But I'm curious, what were your tribes in that area that you grew up in?
Mine was, I'm enrolled with the Northern Cheyenne, also known as Sutta. Well, backtrack for a second. The Cheyenne Nation is made up of 2 distinct tribes. The Tatistas, which was one band, and then the Sutta, which came later and kind of merged with the Tatistas. And in that day and age, back then, it was common for different independent tribes to come together and form one unified tribe. So that was and I started to really learn our history. I wanted to know about that split. And so what's happened for me, again, it was like the stories, the history, songs, all of that became my entire life. That was who I was. And I also saw history repeat itself. Really briefly, one of the most impactful things that happened was when my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer. And she went to the BIA, and there's IHS, there's options available. And the superintendent of the BIA turned around and told my grandmother that the BIA was not willing to fund health care for her. And the best thing she could do was go home and be with her family for the last few days.
BIA. What's BIA? I'm sorry.
Bureau of Indian Affairs.
Okay, great.
And I remember being a little guy, probably maybe 8 years old, and watching my grandmother sob in the kitchen. And I came in, and she quickly wiped her tears away. And I remember I said, sorry, this is kind of painful to remember.
Sure,
I said,
absolutely.
Grandma, why are you crying? And she broke into tears and she said, we don't have any warriors left. No one is strong enough to stand up to the white man. And I remember I took her hand and I puffed up my little chest and I said, I'll do it. I'll stand up to the white man for you. I'll protect our people.
That's
She
right.
smiled. She patted my head. She goes, I know you will, Dakota. I know you will. And that right there set me on a path which I'm still on today, because I wanted to change things. I wanted to do what I said.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandfather said, you have to learn what they know, because what we're doing isn't enough. Use what you've learned as a foundation to build your house, but learn how they're doing it. So that set me on the path towards learning technology, finance, political science, things like that. And now we have, yours truly in the world of, cryptocurrency and advanced finance.
Aho.
So we kind of in
I
a
just
way
have
come
to-
full circle
Yeah, that's
back
powerful.
to that, that little boy that said, I'll do it, I'll protect you. But now the question is, now that we have this, where do we go from here? What's the end game for any of this cryptocurrency, whether it's mine, whether it's, Bitcoin, whether it's any of them that are out there? What's the eventual end game?
Well, can we pause right here, Payu? I mean, I just love that you,
Yes.
first of all, told a very, very important story as to why you then began to go down the course of learning the tools, of the newest tools that white people, right, in many ways, now very, very diverse audience, starting to become more diverse within the cryptocurrency and blockchain space, are actually engaging in, leveraging in all of that. So it doesn't become the same story we see of capitalism over and over again. I think what you've done is to set out to really bring meaning to what I have termed a lot, or talked about a lot, which is community capital. This idea that there is value that exists within our networks and within our social networks, and in many cases within the diverse communities that we all come from. That community capital is very, very valuable. And so what you've done, it sounds like, and this is where I want you to talk about the story of how Maza and why the name Maza, why the actual icon that you've used, why that actually exists today, why you decided I'm going to go down this route. So why don't we start there? And if you can speak to that.
Okay. Well, the Lakota word for money is mazaska, which means, Maza means metal, and ska meaning white. So you have white metal, which is what they term the silver dollars that they would see Washichus carrying. And what would end up happening is, what happened with us is we were talking about, like, initially it was, we wanted to do Lakota coin. And I didn't want to make it any tribe specific, because I didn't want other tribes to feel like they couldn't be a part of it. Native coin seemed too cliche. I wanted something that would have its own unique identity and be able to carry itself forward. So I remember it clearly, we were at a barbecue restaurant and we were writing down, it was actually on the paper map that they gave us, we're writing down different names. And we were looking at MazaCoin coin. And I wasn't really happy with it, and I wanted something else. And I don't remember if it was me or if it was somebody else. If it dropped, I was eating a rib or something, but I set something down. And barbecue sauce, I kid you not, barbecue sauce covered up the ska part. When I looked down, it was very clear, it was MazaCoin. And I remember I said, hey, what about MazaCoin? And everyone was like, that's a good, hey, yeah, that sounds good. That's a good mouthfeel. Now I'm like, okay, mouthfeel, yeah, all right. But it just made sense.
That's great.
So that was how the name came about. As far as the logo, I'm sure a lot of your listeners already know the four directions colors.
No, please.
White, black,
please.
red, yellow.
No, explain that. I think you should explain it. Yeah.
Well, we always see that there are four unique directions. And the four races, and that's the only way we can describe it, the four people come from one of those directions. White, black, yellow, and red. Now, when you look at the logo, every quarter is a different, each of those four directions are equally represented. Neither one is any bigger than the other. And they have to work in sync with their neighbor to make the picture whole. So the whole logo in and of itself was meant to, inspire the fact of like diversity. And it was kind of a subtle little play on, we all have to be in this circle that we call Earth. We all have to be in this circle that we call life. We're all equal, but we're all independent and individual. So you can be independent, be unique, be that person that is you, and be proud of it and be who you are, and still work inside that circle with your neighbors to make the picture whole. So there was a lot of subtle little nuances that come into play with the logo. And that was what we wanted to do. We wanted to show that, MazaCoin is meant for everybody. Yes, we created it. We created it to build our economy, but it doesn't mean that somebody else can't use it.
Right.
It doesn't mean that
it can't be universal. Yeah. It can't be universal. It sounds like it is universal. I mean, I'm looking at the logo right now, and you have this beautiful symbol within the symbol. It looks like, and the four directions. It's almost like a deer. Oh my gosh, antlers. So can you describe what's in the circle of the logo?
The M. That was the M. That was actually, we wanted to put an M in there to signify MazaCoin, but we wanted to do something unique. And I remember someone found it somewhere. I actually think it's a Greek symbol for one of the elements, I think.
Got it.
But it was one that somebody had found, and it just seemed to fit. When we put it in there, it was like, okay, it works. So it represents the Maza, so people can say, okay, MazaCoin. But there in of itself, it has a unique identity unto itself. So it's not just like every other M that you find out there.
Right. It's not. It's absolutely beautiful. I want to go deeper because I just want to be mindful of time. This is powerful when you think about the fact that you had an opportunity, right, to answer your grandmother's call and to stand up and say, yes, I will be that warrior for our relatives, and you created a currency, which was almost unheard of, just even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that you could actually create a currency. So walk me through that journey. What did you do next? You had the logo, and then what did you do to create a currency?
Well, the original journey I had thought about using Bitcoin, and the whole thing started with what we call the BTC Oyate initiative. And that was the original first steps before MazaCoin was even created. And I realized that Bitcoin had limitations. If any regulation came down regarding Bitcoin, it would impact what the tribe was doing. So that was how we ended up starting to build our own coin. So once we had it built, one of the things was it was too advanced for the time. I went back to the tribe and I said, hey, this is what we've done. I had spoken to our chiefs, and I remember that one very clearly. I had met during a treaty chief meeting, and Chase Iron Eyes had brought me in. And I sat there quietly, respectfully, just listening. And towards the end of the meeting, they asked if there was anything else. And Chase popped in and said, yes, I have a young man here with a very exciting project. If we could give him a couple minutes, I'd like him to explain it to you. I have no graphs, I have no laptop, no presentation ready, nothing ready to go. And I am there in front of the most powerful leaders from the tribe. And they said, oh, okay, what do you got? After I fumbled my way through the first 5 minutes trying to explain what this was,
right?
They basically told me, they said, whoa. All we ask, you put the people first, you don't do this only for money, and make sure that our traditions are represented correctly. And I said, I can do that. I said, you don't have to come back anymore. You have our blessing to continue with what you need.
Wow. Beautiful.
So
what year was that?
The traditional side matter.
What year was that?
That was early 21. That was right before we launched, so it was probably late 2012.
2012. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. So when we got it done, we did the ICO in New York, and here was the problem. We did the ICO in New York.
We have to explain that too. Awesome. I'm sorry, Payu. We have to explain ICO. Yeah, just briefly.
We did the initial coin offering.
Okay.
With the Bitcoin Center, out there with Nick Spanos and all of them. Had a great time. Met with a lot of people. I did the longest Q&A session they've ever had. They loved it. People were happy with the fact that I would take questions nonstop. I spoke at Facebook. I was like the first one to speak at Facebook to their executive staff and talk to them about things.
Mm-hmm.
So everything was great and everyone loved it. The price was up. And when I got back, and as soon as I touched down back in South Dakota, everything was going, sideways. And people were panicking. And what it ended up happening was a reporter, not to knock reporters, but a reporter who had no knowledge of the project, saw some random article about Bitcoin scams, automatically assumed that MazaCoin was a scam, and then ran this kind of op-ed piece, claiming that he had spoke personally to Satoshi Nakamoto, and Satoshi had assured him that MazaCoin didn't exist. And I was like, whoa. So as soon as I got back, I had to do immediate fire control. It's like, wait. And it just became one of those deals where nobody understood that the guy with the headphones that walked around typing on his phone and working on his laptop all these months actually would end up doing something, big.
Right.
And that's one of the things that happens on the res. We don't believe that it can come from the res.
Right.
And then when it does, you're alienated and you're isolated. We had every mainstream media outlet flooding the reservation wanting to do interviews, wanting to get, camera time and meet with people and talk to people. And it overwhelmed, our little system on the res.
Wow.
And this was in Pine Ridge.
And this is still around 2012, 2013? This was actually just after 2013. This was 2013. Right after the initial coin offering. I had already come back. And we had a lady who had a little cafe, so we wanted to do the interview there. And what ended up happening is the production crew and everyone else wanted to do interviews, absolutely packed the place to where customers couldn't even get in. And I had to be, whoa, we got to go somewhere else. I'm not going to impact her business if we don't, I'm not going to impact her business just for an interview. Right.
And they were like, well, what can we do? I'll buy some lunch or something, and we can continue. So they bought lunch and everything kind of worked out good, but she was really happy. She was like, somebody here is doing something good. And I can remember, having one interview stopped, and this was kind of the mentality of the reservation. I had one interview stopped because these guys kept following us around, and it was like, okay, stop, what's going on? What can we help you with? And they were wanting, hey, I do rodeo stuff. You could do a story on me. And we had a councilman that wanted to talk about what he was doing. The world doesn't pay attention to us. So when somebody goes and gets the spotlight, everybody wants to, get in there and tell their story.
Right.
There's a million stories on the reservation. MazaCoin is one of them. And that was one of the things that I felt bad about, because people were saying, I can't help you. We're here to do a story on MazaCoin. Sorry. And I got to a point where I was like, whoa. Tell you what, if we want to do an interview with me, I caveat, you give them 5 minutes. I don't care if it airs or not, but give them 5 minutes so that they can at least talk about their story.
Right.
And it ended up having to be kind of like having that foot in the door for everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, what happened was nobody understood because nobody believed. And that's where that quote of as long as people remember, or as long as people only remember the past or what once was, there will be people unwilling to accept what can be. We're so wrapped up in how it used to be and the what we call generational trauma and all of the bad stuff. We literally can't see when something good is here.
Right. Gosh.
I have
so true.
I have literally argued with our Economic Development Administration because they've said, well, we don't know what to do with this. Learn.
Right.
It's not ours, it's yours. I'm like, MazaCoin belongs to everyone. It's called open source. You can download it. And if you want to make a new wallet, go ahead.
Let's get to that, Payu, because I think, one of our listeners are very, I'm sure now at this point, intrigued by the fact that you put your head down and decided, we're going to go through this journey, and this journey is not going to be easy. I'm looking at articles now. You got a great article on Mashable. There are people who have absolutely covered the MazaCoin. You and I went through a recent journey with the Digital Currency Opportunity Coalition, and I really wanted to start this effort because it was important for our Indigenous relatives, African American, Latinos, Asian American, people of diverse races to understand that this really truly can be a movement. And when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about cryptocurrency and blockchain technology that can begin to attack for the first time, right? Some of these issues that have been plaguing communities, but it is going to take a certain type of messaging, a certain type of branding, structured strategy that allows for people to first understand what this is from an educational standpoint, get comfortable with it, because I'm sure you'll have questions, and then begin to take those steps to create a currency that, yes, could actually make a difference in community. But I want to make sure for our listeners, they understand, how is this different than regular fiat currency, right? How is this different? So just because we're going to be cognizant of time, what in your mind said this can be different than fiat currency because of what? What was that for you?
Part of that came from my uncle Russell Means, who had talked about building a currency for the tribe. And what I started to do is look at, what does that entail? How does that become a currency? What is a currency? What is money? And that was a whole entire rabbit hole. And as I learned how finance worked, I learned what a currency was. I learned what the difference between a currency and money. I started to realize that MazaCoin could be something absolutely impactful. And the next question was, how do we do that? What's the next step to take? The tribe didn't understand that by a simple statement of, yes, this is our reserve currency, that gave a lot of power behind MazaCoin. Mm-hmm. And since the tribe doesn't think in those terms, nobody knew what to do. Like I've sat numerous times with our Economic Development Council, and I would say, quick, do we know we're a sovereign nation, right? And they all say, yes. Good. Can somebody identify what our monetary policy is? And they all look at me, what? Exactly. Can't be a sovereign nation without a viable monetary policy. Well, we just used the US dollar. Then we're not really a sovereign nation, are we? Well, we don't have a currency. Yes, we do. It's right here, I just handed it to you. And then they look and they're like, nobody knows how to use this. Well, that's where awareness comes in. That's where we need you guys at the forefront saying, this is our reserve currency, this is the system we're going to use, and building a viable monetary policy behind it so that we can address the issues as they come up. And then you get a room full of blank stares because nobody is thinking in terms of not being supported by the federal government.
Right.
See, everyone loves the term sovereignty. Everyone loves to throw that around on Facebook. Everyone loves to throw that around when they're in an interview. We're a sovereign nation. Yes, but are we acting like it? And a lot of that comes from a vision I received during an EP ceremony. And it was, I saw all of our indigenous people that were in a jail. They were in a giant jail cell, Mississippi. And the jailer kept telling them, you're in here, you're in prison, you can't do anything, you're powerless. So they sat there and they cried. And one day a little boy came up and pushed on the door, and the door opened. And the people realized all those years of suffering that they had been through were a lie. They had the ability to walk out at any time, but they believed the lie and they stayed there. That's why it's been like, we've got to educate people. We've got to get this out there to people so they understand what it is. When MazaCoin first launched and people started to see the potential, the state of South Dakota had a very quiet but very desperate emergency meeting to figure out what to do with it. Because here's one of the things why I say that MazaCoin could be the single most devastating thing to non-Indigenous control over Indigenous life ever. We've all been to Indian casinos. Well, maybe not everybody, but we all know about it. Because the state of South Dakota and most of the other states refuse to recognize MazaCoin as a legitimate currency, they don't have jurisdiction over it. That means it falls outside of like the Indian Gaming Act. That means I could open a casino tomorrow with 100,000 slot machines and table games, all running on nothing but MazaCoin, and it would be completely legal. It would force the state to either formally recognize tribes have a unique independent currency outside the US dollar, which they don't want, or they have to acknowledge the fact that it's outside their jurisdiction and allow, whether it's tribal gaming, whether it's tribal finance, whether it's anything that the US dollar does, they have no control over. So it puts them between a rock and a hard place. For the tribes, it's a win-win because, like I said, we could start running our casinos on MazaCoin, and it's not meant to bypass things, but it's meant to be independent. So we no longer have to rely on, restrictive IRS regulations or restrictive gaming regulations or anything else that hold the tribe back. We could develop a stock market, which is kind of in the process now, where we could issue our own tokenized tribal assets, TTAs, and run our own exchanges outside of the SEC. Billions of dollars of small business community development financing that the US government or any other outside entity has zero ability to halt, limit, or deter. That's a scary thing. If you are an entity that has built yourself on holding minorities and people of color and communities of color down through regulations and the lack of financial resources, when they find a way around that, that's a scary proposition. When I was in Minneapolis recently, I spent time at George Floyd Square. Think about what the communities would be like if those businesses had access to tap into $1 billion worth of outside funding. Not a PPA loan, not some funky loan program that people are going to manipulate and leverage against the community, but real community development, where a portion of if I go to the clothing store and buy clothing, I know that a part of that is going to go back into the fund to help make a flower store. And then I can go shop at that flower store, and a portion of that's going to go help open the new supermarket, help open the new barbecue joint, help open up something else, which is going to bring jobs, which is going to bring employment, this is going to bring better housing, and it's going to bring a better quality and standard of living to everyone, regardless of how much melanin they have or don't have in their skin.
Well, let's transition here, Payu, because I think you're getting to something really, really important, which is tying it back to how do you even begin to value MazaCoin. So we're going to get into some of the technical aspects of cryptocurrency for our listeners, because it's tough for, I think, people who are not familiar with cryptocurrency to see that you can actually point to something and say it has some type of value. A lot of the value comes with the network effect. The network effect, it obviously manifests, right? And happens when you have people using it and exchanging it, buying and selling it and getting, and earning it and all of those good things. So I want us to get into what the MazaCoin is worth today as it relates to fiat currency. So connect the two and its worth today with fiat currency. And then I'm going to ask you a series of questions that help people to understand how they might be able to access MazaCoin, how they can find out more information about it after this discussion. But let's go first with MazaCoin today is worth what?
Okay, excellent question. First off, very briefly, the quick answer is MazaCoin is worth about 1 cent over the counter. But to kind of delve more into that very quickly, I know we're on time, Gil, we have to understand that price is relative. Price does not always necessarily correlate with value. If I think MazaCoin is worth $1 and I'm willing to pay $1 for a MazaCoin, then technically for me, my individual self, MazaCoin is valued at $1, but it may be different for the general population. This is again where people need to understand, just like the US dollar, it's all based on supply and demand. If we had 250,000 people that spent $1 on MazaCoin would go from 1 cent to $1. That's how easy we can go from 1 penny to $1. And it's not that high of a jump to go from $1 to $10 to $100. Good case in point, look at recently GameStop, which everyone got involved with. GameStop was $2 when this all started. And if people believed in it and they said, we want it, we want to hold on to it, we want to get involved, GameStop rocketed from $2 to $480. That was because of the people. The people believed and the people got behind it. The people don't believe and they get rid of it, the value falls. The same thing with MazaCoin, same thing with Bitcoin. If people believe in it and say, hey, I'm going to pick up $1 here, I'm going to pick up $10 here, the people can raise the value because it means something to them. If they just want to hold it and say, I'm going to hold on to it to support the cause, awesome. If retailers say, I want to accept it and I want to help support the cause by accepting it so people can spend it here, awesome. This is a movement of the people. It's not a movement of me. It's not, Payu's going to set the price at whatever, because it was never meant for that. It was meant to be for what we call exchange, the common person, the everyday person. It wasn't meant to be held by billionaires. I know that we have millionaires that are holding it, but it wasn't meant to be like Bitcoin. I never wanted a MazaCoin to be $50,000. I wanted it to be in a range where people could buy it and feel good about it. So the short answer right now, it's about a penny.
Well, it sounds like, yeah, I was going to say this. It sounds like the perfect time, though, to allow people, right, to really get behind it because it is affordable. We can afford, I think many of us, some of us are in a position where they can afford, but most of us, I would say, are able to around the globe afford a penny. Some of us don't have access to that. So let's talk about that, right? How do people gain access to buying a MazaCoin? In the most simplest of ways, how can people go today and get MazaCoin?
Well, there's two ways that are the easiest. If they're crypto savvy and they know how to do the exchanges, they can go to an exchange like Free Exchange, FREI exchange.com, or Unnamed, which are the two exchanges that carry us right now currently. And they can exchange Bitcoin, Ethereum, Doge, I think a couple others. Litecoin is one. And they can exchange that for MazaCoin, and that's one way to acquire it. The other way is just direct buying it. Go to somebody that has it and say, hey, can I buy some of that off you? And that way they'll say yes or no.
Wow.
I actually just sold.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just sold some to a tribal member. I sold him like he bought like $30 worth. But he was happy. He got 3,000 MazaCoin he's sitting there with. And he looks at him every day. He's happy because
that's fabulous.
He has it.
Now, when you say he looks at it every day, MazaCoin, he bought it from you. So I want to get even more specific. Like, find someone that has it. How do you even search for people who have MazaCoin so that you can buy it from them?
You can buy MazaCoin. Well, you can find other people on like our Telegram group, which I'm sure you can point the link.
I will, sure. So you're on Telegram, and what's the name of that particular Telegram group?
Maza Tribe, I believe, is that one.
Okay.
It's Maza Tribe on there. We are on Discord. If you look at MazaCoin on Discord, you'll find us. Pretty much Facebook, Telegram, and Discord are the easiest ways. We do have a website that we're working on rebuilding.
Right, and that's MazaCoin.org.
MazaCoin.org. We are working on it. MazaCoin.org. We are working on another new site. We're going to revamp that. I'm having to do a lot of it because short-staffed. If anyone wants to volunteer to help us with websites, love it.
Payu, I'm so glad that you mentioned, the fact that there's opportunities to help. One of the things that we're doing here with YING in having built a skill sharing platform that allows for you to access the services that you may need that you may not have cash for. I think what you've built out with MazaCoin allows for us, and I want to do it here live, offer you, an opportunity for us to partner and really be able to drive an opportunity for people to literally earn MazaCoin by skill sharing. So tell me a little bit about some of the things that you do need help with MazaCoin. In an ideal world, what positions are you trying to fill?
Definitely website help. And with the website. Another one would be social media help, getting the awareness out there, talking to people, kind of being ambassadors. So that people understand, like, this is what MazaCoin is, this is the journey, this is what we're doing. That's really the biggest ones, is helping have more hats on the table so we can, expand and grow and get people excited about the journey.
I love this so much because you talked about website help, social media, and ambassadors. Those are one of the three core elements that you need for any marketing campaign. So you nailed it. We're coming to an end of our episode for Currency for Humankind, and I cannot thank you, Payu, enough for being able to spend time with us and really have our audience understand that this is not a scam. Let's be very clear. The Payu Harris is the founder, along with hundreds of other individuals I'm on a Telegram group with MazaCoin. So let's dispel that rumor, number one. Number two, we're looking for people who care about our Indigenous relatives and want to stand for a mission that is really, really focused on bringing back a sovereign nation that has a monetary policy, that has a currency that's specifically aimed energetically towards helping our Indigenous relatives. So I think with that, any closing words before we say goodbye?
I just want to say thank you to listeners. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I appreciate and humble myself with the fact that they listen. I'm happy to help with. As you're working with, feel free. And just, kind of on the crypto thing, not to get real political, just, prayer for the flowing thing that we're involved with. So praying for justice and keep your head up out there. We're going to get through this.
As we're closing out this episode for Currency for Humankind, Payu, I'm so happy that you just mentioned what you mentioned, because during this recording, we had two massive shootings that occurred, and one in the Asian community in Atlanta, the other in Boulder, Colorado. And it's just been a pretty hard week, especially during the fact that we're still journeying through the pandemic. So I am so grateful for our guest, Payu Harris, who has come to us to talk about the MazaCoin and its real mission to help sovereign tribes around the globe and have an opportunity to really understand how we can help you, how we can get involved. I'm thrilled about our very burgeoning, right, partnership with YING and the skill sharing platform that we've created. This has been an incredible interview. Thank you so much for joining us. And we are now, I'm going to say goodbye on another episode of Currency for Humankind. I'm Karla Ballard, your host. Thank you for joining us.